morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And one of the many reasons why we are a failed state is that we have a penchant for ignoring facts, truth, and reality. Some of our people seem to think that if you ignore the facts and the reality, somehow they'll all go away, they'll disappear, and you can carry on with your life. The truth of the matter is, facts and reality do not go away. If you fail to learn from the past, you are doomed to repeat the same mistake over and over again. And with each pass, pay the price. If you do the right thing, you get rewarded. If you do the wrong thing, you get punished. That is a fundamental universal law. And we cannot run away from it. When it's an individual denying facts, truth, reality, it's bad enough. But when you are doing it as a government, holding the destiny of the whole nation in your hands, that is a different matter. And this is the root cause why Zimbabwe is a failed state. We've had a regime that has had a budget for denying facts and reality, and has dragged the nation deeper and deeper into the abyss. Today, I'd like to focus on just Zanu PF. And here is an interview that Nick Mangwana gave to one of the British journalists, where he was held to account and was forced to face some facts and realities.
I'm like a train or a locomotive. Every dog which runs around alongside the tracks can bark and bark, but the locomotive does not stop. It goes.
And the locomotive is not the country, it's Zanu PF as far as he's concerned.
Zanu PF is a vehicle for transformation within the country.
It's a vehicle. It hasn't done much transformation in 35 years. It's trash.
We made mistakes.
It's trash democracy and trash economy.
We didn't trash democracy, but yes, we made mistakes. And yes, we messed up the economy.
Mistakes.
But here we are.
Disaster. Whatever line you toe, and you're a very friendly guy, you're a nice, jovial sort of fellow.
Thank you very much for that.
Whatever line you toe, you know full well that Mr. Mnangagwa is hostage to the brutality, the brutal record of Zanu PF. His period as head of Central Intelligence in the mid-1980s coincided with the most brutal of all Mugabe's massacres, didn't it? So-called Gukura Hundi killings, in which up to 20,000 from the Ndebele tribe were killed or disappeared. He's denied any role, but actually the state-controlled Bulawayo Chronicle reported at the time that he compared dissidents to bugs and cockroaches that had reached such an epidemic that the government needed to bring in DDT to get rid of them.
There are two things.
His words.
His words. Yeah, I heard you. Now give me a chance to respond to you. First thing is, we were in very formative years of our country. Mistakes were made.
And that excuses massacres.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't excuse them. We're not making excuses. I'm simply saying we made mistakes. So that's an admission that we made mistakes. That's number one. Number two, during that period, when he was Minister of State Security, he was coming to Parliament to account for his actions all the time. We had a very robust parliament at that time.
You didn't make mistakes.
Yes,
you committed crimes. These weren't parking offences for which you go to court and pay a fine. This was murder on a grand scale.
There were mistakes.
To call it mistakes is the biggest understatement in history, Mr. Manangwa. Mistakes.
It's not.
Hitler made mistakes. Did he? Stalin made mistakes. No, they were mass murderers. This was mass murder. Don't diminish it.
No, we
Don't
lost.
diminish it.
No, we lost people. We lost Zimbabweans, and for all UK, I lost family too. It's unfortunate that it happened, but in the formative years of any nation, if we go back to the history of Britain, we would find that there were pages, there were people that died. It doesn't clear people, it doesn't make it any better, but the facts still remain. In the formative years of a nation, things will happen which should not happen, and that should not have happened.
Mr. Manangwa, violence is stamped into your party's DNA, and that's already been proved yet again in the last week. The very day the new president was sworn in, the former finance minister, Ignatius Chombo, was handed over to the police by the military, who had beaten him up severely while he was held in custody.
And at team, we are choosing, were two testimonies, Chombo, Ignatius Chombo, which is the minister you're talking about, his version and his lawyer's version. Chombo, he himself, in his testimony in chief, he never said he was tortured.
Is he wrong? Is he wrong?
You know, he didn't say he was tortured. Yes, the activist lawyer is wrong because the actual person didn't allege and didn't allege.
Are you telling me they didn't beat him up?
No, they didn't beat him up.
And you know this for a fact. You've investigated.
Well, he never said that.
You know this for a fact.
Well, we cannot. We can stop it there. The important thing here is Zanu PF wants to make us believe that what happened during Gukurahundi was a mistake. Of course, that's nonsense, because that was not a mistake. Gukurahundi, the primary purpose of Gukurahundi was to force PF SAPU to give up its existence as an independent party, political party, because it was the only party that constituted a real serious challenge to Zanu PF's hold on power. Gukurahundi was to force the late Dr. Joshua Nkomo and his ZAPU colleagues to give up ZAPU and join Zanu PF, which they finally did in 1987. The Unity Accord of 1987 paved the way for the imposition of the de facto one-party state that has ruled Zimbabwe up to this day. For somebody then to turn around and say, oh, it was a mistake. The imposition of the dictatorship, was that a mistake? If it was a mistake, why is it carried on all these years? Of course it wasn't a mistake. And that failure to accept historic facts, we've paid for it. Because we have a dictatorship. We cannot undo the dictatorship without acknowledging that the Unity Accord of 1987 was nothing to do with so-called unity and development. It had everything to do with imposition of a one-party state. That is the truth. That is the historic fact. Mnangagwa is a thug, as the journalists here correctly pointed out. Because the 1983 to 1987 Gukurahundi was not the only time that he showed that he was a thug. Mnangagwa has been at the heart of Zanu PF sport rigging and many acts of violence. One of the most notable events was the electoral coup of 2008. Mnangagwa was at the heart of it. Here is Professor Ibo Mandaza relating that story.
I also know that Mugabe conceded defeat on 2008. He phoned Mbeki and Obasanjo to concede defeat. I hope that Thabo Mbeki and Obasanjo will one day make that public. But one of them, I won't say which one, told me that Mugabe phoned them that Saturday night and said, look, I lost the election and I concede defeat. And I know that Mugabe stuck to his guns, was prepared to go. His wife was since bags packed to go somewhere on the following day when Mnangagwa and Chiwenga approached him and said, you stay where you are. And then they contrived the runoff, sadly with the help of South Africa. And runoff took place, very violent. 360 people were killed. I don't know. The South African, I came here as part of a delegation to Cape Town to see members of the ANC. I don't want to mention names, they're my friends. I saw them, and through them, a cabinet committee subcommittee of South African cabinet was set up on the Zimbabwe issue. It was on the basis of that cabinet committee that South Africa did not recognize the runoff. And indeed, it was the basis of that committee that Thabo sent the generals to South Africa, to Zimbabwe. I met them, and I was one of the few to have read the report, because I was flying to Joburg in the company of General Romano, who was a friend. He passed away, no? That's why, yeah. And I also took people who had lost their hands in the violence to the South African embassy in Harare. And Romano broke down in tears. How can a liberation movement treat these people like that? He was a broken man. So there's no doubt at all here in South Africa as to the brutality of the regime in Harare. So it amazes me, it angers me, in fact, when I hear the nonsense coming out of people like Mbalula's mouth. They know it. And the report has never been published, the general's report, to this day.
The tragedy is that we are looking at a situation where history has the habit of repeating itself. Mnangagwa, who was at the heart of Gukurahundi, was also at the heart of Operation Mafutera Papi in 2008. The purpose, the primary purpose of Operation Mafutera Papi was to punish Zimbabweans for having dared to vote freely and reject Zanu PF. For that, they were being punished. over 500 people, according to some records, were murdered during the runoff, the 3 months runoff in 2008. Mnangagwa and Chiwenga were at the heart of it. And they've gone on to occupy the highest offices in the land. They are president and vice president, respectively. If that is not an indication of those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it, I don't know what is. They didn't stop there either. They went on to stage the 2017 military coup that booted out Mugabe from office under the pretext that they were cleaning up corruption, getting rid of all the corrupt leaders. And yet we know that corruption under Mugabe, it was bad. But under Mnangagwa, it has become incredible. It has gone into overdrive. The brutal oppression of the opposition has too gone into overdrive. Mnangagwa has used the billions of dollars from all the blatant looting to buy off all those involved who could help him stay in power. In the 2023 elections alone, many people believed that Mnangagwa must have spent at least $5 billion from buying chicken for the povo, chicken in and chips for the povo, and passing them from one rally to another, to buying cars, trucks for the chiefs and church leaders. And for the MPs, they were all given $40,000. And ministers and deputy ministers received $230,000 for the deputy ministers and $500,000 for the ministers. The judges, $400,000, and so on and so forth. When you add it all together, you must have spent at least $5 billion. And this is a country that is so impoverished, it cannot afford to maintain decent health care. The education system has collapsed. Basic infrastructure like roads are in a deplorable state. Mnangagwa went on to rig the 2023 elections. And he even boasts. And when SADC and the AU condemned what he did, he dismissed them as detractors. That's where we are with this man. Here is Mnangagwa dismissing SADC's damning report that the 2023 elections were flawed and illegal.
Vakatuka Zanu PF kana ndonyanyisa kufara zvakanaka ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa farai because you are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection arafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
Welcome to the program, Ben. Good afternoon.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. One thing that still surprises me up to this day, a lot of people seem not to get what we've been doing for the past 25, now going into 26 years, is now turning into a circus or worse, a nightmare. We are doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. I really can't put a finger to where we are missing it. It's the whole world is saying it's so loud and clear. Stop participating in rigged elections and fight for reforms now. And here we are. Wilbert, if you go into different groups, all these groups are busy planning on forming different political parties, such that when we get to 2028, we will break the record of the most presidential candidates in one election. And still that will not stop Zanu PF from rigging. And we all know the result at the end of the day. It's becoming annoying, tedious, frustrating, and the works. We've listened to report after report after report. And now what makes it even worse is the observer mission reports are all saying the same thing. But Zimbabweans don't care about that. It's not that they don't get it. They just don't care. And they are fixed on participating in flawed and illegal elections, come what may.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of it, I don't know whether you were listening. I did say that one of the reasons why we are a failed state is because we have got this knack for denying facts, pretending they don't exist, pretending that they are not important. And in some cases, pretending they were mistakes. And yet, we continue to live with them. So in this particular case, I think that is what we are seeing being repeated over and over again. In this interview, which I think you have listened to, our friend Nick Mangwana is trying to belittle what happened during Kukura-Wundi, claiming that it was a mistake. And yet we know that it was not a mistake. it was a deliberate and calculated move to force PF ZAPU to give up its independence as an independent party and clear the way for the imposition of the de facto one-party state. If it was a mistake, why has Zanu PF failed to reverse it? They've defended the de facto one-party state ruthlessly and continue to do so to this day. That's not a mistake. That is the tragedy with Zimbabwe. And I think in this particular case, one can say Zanu PF has got away with murder, both literally and in reality. Because what has Zanu PF been doing, we have failed to hold them to account. We, the people, we have elected the opposition and given them the task to implement reforms so that we could have a regime that is accountable to the people. The opposition has failed in their duties, and we, the people, have failed to hold the opposition to account. So we've been putting layer upon layer of this failure to hold people to account, failure to recognize facts, failure to hold the truth, to value the truth, and pursue it. And this is why we are a failed state. It is most unfortunate that this situation has existed. Worse still, that it is continuing to exist. I agree with you. We have been offered the solution. The solution is stop participating in flawed elections. But we don't seem to learn from that mistake. We continue to make the same mistake. I think the chances are in 2028, we will make the same mistake. We will participate in those flawed elections to perpetuate the dictatorship. That is the nightmare of our situation.
I think for us to be able to hold leadership to account, we should be able to know there's something wrong. Now, anybody that holds public office or aspires to hold public office is accountable to the people, and they must meet those demands. But like I said, if we cannot see that there's something wrong, I'll give an example. Like, we cannot go and say, ZEC, what they're doing is flawed and illegal when we are very much willing to participate. It means we are fine with it. So ZEC really does not need to be accountable because they know you will still come and participate no matter how flawed it is. And they know this. They know this. Zanu PF knows that they can rig and get away. And the opposition will always lure the people and the masses to come and participate. And Zanu PF doesn't care whether you vote for it or not. They just want you to show up in that line and show the world the process was democratic. You went in, you voted, nobody did this, nobody did that. That's it. How they going to cook up the results and do what, that is their own. And they are not accountable to anybody. Zanu PF is not accountable to anybody. Hell, these guys here, they can murder people and say it was a mistake. It was mistakes. It's normal when you are starting as a country to make mistakes. 45 years in, the mistake is still going on. For the opposition, 26 years now, and the mistake is still going on. Now we are hearing Chamisa is saying, child's play is finished. So you were playing with us all the while back. I mean, Zimbabweans must be the most easiest to con, easiest to forgive. Somebody is telling you that, it doesn't matter, whether I lied to you or I participated in rigged elections, I conned you and so forth. It doesn't matter. Now we mean serious business. Wilbert, sometimes we got to accept that at the end of the day, it remains the right of every Zimbabwean to choose how they want to go about ruining the life, ruining Zimbabwe. Because I can't have anything positive to say to, where we are going, where we are coming, and so forth. We keep making the same mistakes. We just can't seem to move beyond this one point. It's like it's a big enough hurdle. We cannot cross it. Elections are illegal, we've been told. And we actually agreed to that point. We saw the likes of Gambakwe going to SADC to go and demonstrate. We saw Chamisa stand up and say elections were rigged, yet he knew. We've seen people, each and every one of us, saying Zanu PF stole the election, stole. We know, but we still keep going, doing the same thing. I don't know, it's a nightmare now.
Well, I do agree with you there. My last closing remark is nations often get the government they deserve. We, the people of Zimbabwe, not only Zanu PF, not only the opposition, have failed to recognize facts and reality. We have downplayed the truth because it's not convenient. But we are paying for it. We have paid dearly for it these last 45 years. I repeat, those who fail to learn from the past are doomed to repeat the same mistakes. We should have learned by now that Zanu PF is a party of thugs, that the opposition is sold out, and we should have known by now that rigged elections is a case that we must cure ourselves of. I've said on this platform that free, fair, and credible election is more than a right. It is the essence of good governance. And we in Zimbabwe, after 45 years of corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical rule, this is the number one issue we should be fighting for. We cannot ignore it anymore. If we do, will pay dearly for it. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us, and I hope you'll be able to do it again in future. Have a good evening.